Welcome to Autonomous Systems. All right, today we're going to set up the platform. Now you have several different options for this. One, you can actually, since we're migrating to ROS 2, you can install ROS 2 directly on Windows, not the virtual machine. There are some pros to this. One, the virtual machine is obviously less efficient with CPU. Two, you're going to have less networking issues. There's no NAT or bridge network issues, which we'll talk about later. The cons to installing on Windows is it sometimes doesn't work. And so it's one of those things, just follow the instructions explicitly and then it will either work or not work. Likewise for the virtual machine, if you want to use the virtual machine, the pros is everything's kind of set up for you on the virtual machine hard drive, but you have to run a virtual machine. So it's of course not as efficient CPU wise, and there will be some networking issues a little bit later. We'll get around them, but there are some, just be aware. So those are your pros and cons. I definitely recommend trying to install it on Windows. Takes about 30 minutes, and you'll know if it's going to work or not pretty quickly. If you want to use Linux, the first thing you want to do is install Oracle VirtualBox. Now, I have an older version here. Your version might look a little bit different, but that's fine. After you install it, I recommend you install the host tools for your particular version of VirtualBox. That way it'll let you copy and paste. And then you're going to copy that virtual disk drive that I shared to your computer. Do not copy the virtual disk drive file to a cloud network or a network cloud drive, because it will just break when you try running it. So it has to be on your computer. It's 20 gigabytes. Now, once you have that, you're going to have to go to File, Virtual Media Manager. For the newer versions of VirtualBox, I think you have to hit Tools, and then under Tools, there's the Virtual Media Manager. Then you're going to click Add, and you're going to go find or select the file that you just saved to your drive, and then you're going to hit Add. Make sure it's added up here. I have a couple different virtual disk drives, that's why I have so many. Then hit Apply and Close. That's the first step. The next step is you're going to create a new virtual machine. I would recommend giving it all the memory possible. That's green. It's in the green zone. You are not going to add a virtual hard drive, and you're going to give it a name, and it's going to be Linux, and if you want you can click on Ubuntu 64. Again, I would give it as much memory as the green allows, and then hit Create. I'll give it a name. I called mine ROS. You can call it something else, and then hit Create. Once you have that virtual machine created, we're going to modify some settings first. So setting wise, we're going to open it up and click on System. You want your base memory to be, again, as much green as possible. And I also have Enable IO API-C. I'm not sure if this is absolutely necessary, but I did have this enabled. Processor, so again, if you need to pause the video, pause it. Processor, you're going to give as many CPUs that's in the green zone, and I would put the execution cap at 100%. For some reason, it likes putting the execution down at 1%, and I don't know why. So just give it a heads up on that. Also, I have enabled PAE and X. I believe we will need this for networking. And everything else should be good for the system. Display, make sure you give yourself as much video memory as possible. Your monitor count, you can just have it as 1. We don't need to worry about that. And everything else should be intact. Everything else should be fine. Now click on Storage. You're going to add a new SATA drive, and you're going to select that hard drive that you added. If you did not add it to the virtual media manager, then you will not see the hard drive at this step. Now, the next and last thing we have to do is network. Now, there's two separate networks. Remember how I said that using the virtual machine does have a little bit of a problem with networking. If you are working alone, and I would not have both of these enabled at once, but if you're working alone, you're going to have a NAT adapter. And what that means is basically the virtual box itself is going to act like a router, and your virtual machine can see the internet, but no one can see your virtual machine. Again, this is if you're working alone, say for homework or something. You're going to have cable connected, and then we're going to do port forwarding, and we're going to add a new rule where we have host port 9090 and guest port will be ported to guest port 9090. This is port forwarding. So this means if your host machine, like my Windows machine, receives a packet at 9090, it'll forward it to the virtual machine. We use this for the simulator. Now, you may want to, and of course this is for, again, if you're working alone. If you're working in class, we'll be using our own custom wireless router, and you're going to select, you're going to use a bridge adapter. Now, bridge adapter will not work on school Wi-Fi. It will work on school wired, strangely enough. So you can use bridge adapter if you're connected by a wire to the school network, but not Wi-Fi. So for the class, we're using our own Wi-Fi. Make sure you selected your wireless controller here and your bridge adapter. Under advanced, make sure on promiscuous mode you allow all, and then you should be good to go. Again, this will be the setting that you use while we're in class. So one more step before we're done setting up the virtual box. We have to run it, so go ahead and hit start. And we're up. Now this is what you're going to get. Don't panic, I do have a desktop installed. You may get this message that appears after the login. Don't panic, this is just giving you a message. The login is student, and the password the login is student, and the password is password, all lowercase. We'll get this. Prompt will come up in a minute. And then we want to start the desktop. I have a custom desktop that's very lightweight. We type start X, and we'll bring up our custom desktop. Now we can go to view, you can go to virtual machine, set your resolution and set your scale. So now this is a Linux computer being emulated on your presumably Windows computer or Mac computer, and it's as if you had your own little computer or a separate hardware for it. If you screw up this virtual machine, it's not going to hurt your host system. You can just delete it and start over. Now there is one step we need to do, and one thing that caught us off guard when we were going through this over the summer was Ubuntu assigns MAC address based on a machine ID that's found in this file. So if you cd etc machine-id, less. This number is going to be used for the DHCP server to give you a IP address. Now, the problem is you've all copied the same virtual hard drive. So right now you all have the same number. To to fix this, we're going to do sudo rm/etc/machine-id. So we're going to remove the file completely. Make sure you type our password in. Then we're going to say sudo systemd-machine-id-setup. Again, pause the video if you need to. This will randomly give you a new machine ID. Therefore, there's no astronomical chance that you're going to have a duplicate ID of someone else in the class, and everything will be fine. Now, one thing to mention, if you don't do this step and another student doesn't do this step, then your computer will think that it's receiving its own broadcast when it gets a broadcast from the other computer. So you will not see their messages. Say that. Now if I do less/etc/machine-id, you'll see I have a new number, and as long as everyone in the class has done this step, we should have minimal networking issues. Anyway, that's the setup for the virtual machine. Again, if you want to try the Windows, give it a shot. This is the setup for the Linux, and hopefully everyone can be running Linux with the command prompt or having their Windows set up. I'll see you later.